Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Good, good. Welcome back to Genuine Nonsense. I'm Kelly MacFarland.
And I am Kristina Smarz.
I know I kind of lost a little bit of air there for a minute. Yeah, you liked it?
You really hit the Mac in that one. That was nice.
Kelly MacFarland.
MacFarland.
You know, I started doing Kelly MacFarland more when people were always spelling my name wrong.
Mhm.
And so there were many times I would go and have to give my name for something specific. And they'd be like, I'm not seeing you here. And I'd be like, it's MacFarland, M-A-C. And they'd still spell it M-C. So I really hit that Mac.
Okay, hit that Mac as hard as you have to, because it will.
I hit that Mac. That's my big adult film that I put out in the 70s.
Is that like Mac and Me? But like it's...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, totally, yes.
Fantastic.
Yes, fantastic. We have so much show tonight that we don't even have time to really, like, as my dad would say, stop dicking around and get to it.
Oh, Papa Mac.
Yeah, he's great. Walt. He's so cute.
Walt.
So Walt. Yeah.
There's no time for dicking around because
there's no time.
Awesome guests tonight. We've got,
oh my gosh,
we've got so much fun, and so little of it actually has to do with us, which is kind of funny.
I love it. It's big interviews, and we're gonna have a great time tonight. Want to get to it without delay? Should we just do it? All right, let's do it. Our first guest, so happy to have this comedian, this amazing performer, fresh off of the 2020 Boston Comedy Festival win. Please welcome Liz Glazer.
Thank you.
Hi, Liz.
Hi. As you were talking, Kelly, okay, so a couple of points of resonance.
Please
Number
tell
one,
me.
the way that you had awareness of losing the air mid-sentence is something I think of a lot, because I tend to bite off a lot in terms of thoughts. And so I really, like, I think about that a lot, especially, like, you know, when thinking about jokes. You know, I know that there's, like, obviously ways of honing jokes and words and stuff like that, but, like, really thinking about where to take breaths is something that I'm very conscious of, because I really do have the experience, you know, of losing it in a word or something like that. And number two, in terms of ways that people pronounce your name, I get a lot of Glazer. And the thing is, when someone, like, brings you up, there's no I.
Right.
That's saying.
Glazer.
But when someone brings you up to stage and they're like, Liz Glazer, it's like, whenever somebody mispronounces a name, if you're the person with the name, you look like a total asshole if you're like, it's Glazer. And that's honestly what I feel, but I also recognize that, like, it's no one's fault. Nobody means it. It's also like, who cares? We're just saying a name and move on. But I feel like, as a teacher and also just as a person, I'm just, like, so overly conscious about pronunciation. And I'm more, and like, I'm sure I'll eat my words and mispronounce and whatever. But yeah, like, I guess, like, anyway, I've just, like, I understand the mispronunciation.
Yes.
I understand what you were saying about your name.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. I also think I might have pronounced your name.
Oh my God, no, you didn't.
I did it right?
No.
This is a really long way of saying
no. Oh my God, that's the worst. No. If anything, it was someone from earlier today, but I was trying to not even have that in my thoughts. No, you didn't do it at all.
I'm super sensitive to names because my name is exactly the way it's spelled. MacFarland. And I don't understand why I have to over-announce it.
The burden is on the other party for sure.
Kristina, what do you get with Smarz?
All the time. Like, first of all, between Kristina, like, which not too many people use, but it's constantly Christine, which I'm like, okay, I don't mind, but it's like that little bit of effort, you know, just like, just give me the, like, you know, just that last little bit of effort to take it home. But Smarz, like, I get Smarts all the time. Like, there's always a T in there. I've gotten Suarez. I don't know where that one came from.
I mean, that is just complete disregard for letters.
But the thing is, it's also like, and I'm sensitive to this, especially in the moments when I get indignant about it, which again, I just want to underscore that this was not one of them. But in those moments, I'm just like, okay, people are busy. They don't mean it. They just, you know, like this. And also it's like, really, Liz, like, you've never made a mistake. Of course you haven't. So I have all of those competing thoughts at the same time as I'm just like, it's Glazer, you know, so.
Like laser.
Right. So many things, like, one of my absolute favorites, though, and I don't even know how this happened, and I don't mean to call anybody out or put them on blast, but the mayor of Somerville, Mr. Joe Curtone, I was doing an event there, and this was like 10 years ago, like, introduced me and was like, Kristina Smarz. Like, he somehow, like, and I was like, I can't even do it because it's like Smarz, and I'm like, wow, like,
almost like
you're giving a second syllable, which I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be mad at that.
Though he was like playing the game from Sesame Street where it's like,
Mars. Mars.
Right.
Mars, yes.
You alluded to it. You are a law professor.
Right. Well, I used to be a law professor.
That's hot. Tell us everything.
I'm still technically a lawyer, which my mother likes me to remind people, even though it's like the least of my desires, nor any of my legal abilities to practice on behalf of anybody. But I do still have, I think, like, bar dues that are paid up through whenever they're supposed to be. Anyway, I don't practice. For most of my legal career, I taught. I have a joke about it, which is like basically the most concise way that I can think to say my entire resume and most of my life story, which is I am a stand-up comedian. I was not always a stand-up comedian. I used to be a law professor, and that is, which I'm sure you know, the typical route to stand-up comedy.
Right.
Stand-up comic, you go to law school for 3 years, then you practice for 2, teach for 9, get tenure, give it all up, and do stand-up comedy, which now means yelling from home into your laptop in front of the bathroom with the cat litter. So anyway, that's my trajectory.
That's the American dream right there.
Like, I mean, pretty much.
Bathroom.
I think it's so interesting because I'm not a lawyer.
Sure.
Smarz, are you a Smarz?
No.
I knew that I liked you both.
Yes. So what I've noticed though is a lot of lawyers are comedians.
Yes, I've noticed the same.
Yeah. And that is, it seems to be true. And also, like, I do like lawyers, and there's like a lot of lawyer jokes, and it's like easy enough to play into those. But I perform a lot for lawyers and law students and law schools, especially during the pandemic. I feel like that's been, I don't know if it's like a combination of everybody needing stuff to do on Zoom, and maybe even, I don't know why lawyers especially, that doesn't seem whatever, but like, I think it's just like, I'm me, and I've gotten some attention for like winning Boston or whatever it is. Yeah. And some of my old lawyer friends, whether they're, students of mine who now have gone on to like be on the planning committee for their bar associations in their states or whatever it is, people from law schools. I've done quite a bit of Zooming comedy events with those crowds. And it's been really fun because I hadn't explored quite as deeply, and I don't think I was quite ready to some of the aspects of my having been a lawyer and like lawyer jokes, not because like the lawyer jokes of the varietal that I'm familiar with from like someone's dad at a Passover Seder were never interesting to me, but it was more just like, okay, well, what about my experience as a lawyer, and like to what extent can I pick apart that for the purpose of, relatably, hopefully, expressing what the nature of my experience was, such that I can, like I would construct regular bits, also construct bits about that. And so I have stuff. I've noticed more recently that there's sort of this arc, or I don't know what to call it, like maybe just like a theme in some of the bits that I write, that it's like, okay, well, there are lesbians, but then I'm this kind of lesbian, or I'm a rabbi's wife. And so like in Judaism, that's a rebbitzin. That's like the technical term for being a rabbi's wife. And so it's like there are rebbitzins, and then there's me, because I don't think that I quite fit into like the mold of what you might think of as a rabbi's wife. And similarly, with respect to having been a lawyer, I think that there are parts of me that are like, I'm such a lawyer. First of all, I speak like this, and like I construct, my sets as though they're arguments before a judge. But I'm here to win a case. You know what I mean? And so like there are ways in which I am very typical lawyer, and also ways that I'm not. And so I don't mean it to the extent that it's like formulaic, like this is the only way that I know how to write jokes. But I noticed around the time of the pandemic, and again, really just, I think it just happened that was when, that I was like, I think I'm ready to like talk about a little bit of this, because like just one example in terms of like, because I tell stories, but I also try to hit them heavy with punchlines. But like where my wife and I were looking into potentially buying a house, and the broker tells my wife, she's like, well, Liz will really want to look at these documents. And I was just like, I know Liz, she doesn't want to go near the documents. I'm like, people will do that where it's like, well, you used to be a lawyer, so I'm sure that you care about like some boring non-story about how a person I don't know sued another person I also don't know. And so it's just like stuff like that where I'm like, okay, it seems like maybe there could be like a funny place to put this, and I could share with audiences. And even if they don't have exactly my experience, because I feel like I hit a bunch of like, boxes that maybe not everybody does, then it's just like one of the jokes that I have about having been a lawyer is like, what was my job? My job was sitting at a desk being CC'd on emails I didn't understand, and like, that's a joke I think that relatably can be understood by a lot of people who have corporate jobs or whatever. And so I've been trying to, I guess, like, I am trying to write material on it, but like it's flowed pretty naturally for whatever reason.
I think that a lot of people, I know I'll put myself in that group as well. During the pandemic, it's like I know my voice and I've known it all along as a stand-up. However, with the pandemic, you have to like lean into what you're good at, because when you only have this,
it's so
you have to be able to know what you're doing. I want to ask you this. Yeah. I read that you had a really cool article in right after you won in Vanyaland. Am I saying it right? Vanyaland.
I think.
Kid. And is it true that you submitted to the Boston Comedy Festival and got declined only to come back and win it?
Nice.
The next year?
Yes, it's very true.
That is like
beautiful. Yeah, it's great. And it was like, I was so happy. Number one, that I still had the email and the memory, like the recollection, because I mean, I've submitted to lots of comedy festivals and been rejected. And I remember I actually like, there was some thread on one of the Facebook groups for comedians or something. And it was like, somebody was, presumably at their wit's end, and they were just like, why do I even submit for these things? Like, what's the point? And a lot of people were weighing in, nicely and like informatively. And then I just wrote like what I perceived to be funny, and thankfully it was received as such, throwaway comment, which was like, well, I'm just addicted to rejection, because otherwise I have no other explanation for why I keep applying. Because it wasn't just like the Boston Comedy Festival I had heard of. And like people know what it is, but like I submitted, because I just would go through a spree, and I'm just like, these festivals that are awfully named, I don't know how to pronounce anything. They're like 100 words, and for whatever reason, like just like the queer, like a million different, there's nothing wrong with like the queer whatever festival. I just remember it because of a specific thing that I applied for. And it was like the southwestern region of the Midwestern Northern Queer Alliance, and, rejected. And I'm just like, I didn't even know who you were. Right. And it got to this point that I would like sort of have a private joke about it in my own journal with myself. And I kill with that crowd, but I just was like, the number of rejections, and the rejections to things that like, I don't know who was running them. I don't know who else was applying. I'm like, what do I have to do? And I think it was frustrating for me because I was close to being, I guess, somewhat more in the pocket of my voice, but it was frustrating to me. But of course, I sort of knew that I had to be wrong for being upset about it, because I'm like, whether it's because of universal timing and it's just like what's meant for you won't pass you by. And I do believe all that stuff. So whether it's that or just like, listen, you're not ready yet. And even though you may think that you're further along than like whoever, like, first of all, you don't really have the objectivity to assess that, because you're you. And even if it's true, for whatever reason, they can see that you have further to go. And so I was careful, and I meant to be, with the post about the rejection from the year before, to not be like bitter about it, but instead to be like, listen, for the 5 minutes that I have the attention of aspiring comics in New England, and the East Coast, if you have the experience like I did, not just for Boston, but for so many different festivals, being rejected so often, and you're really upset about it like I was, then here you go. Here's your inspiring story. It was literally a year later, and this is what happened.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I wish more people had that attitude. Like that in and of itself, just the knowledge of you can't be your own, adjudicator. Like you can't, you don't know what other people are seeing. And so many people think they are, like, as both a performer or a director or a teacher, like I've often given a note, like, well, this is what's happening. Well, I was doing this. It's like, that's not what we were saying. So
I mean, and I appreciate the reflection of that, Kristina, really a lot. And I also wonder, like, if it sometimes happens, this is just a theory, I don't know, in terms of like that gap between, you know, like the Ira Glass gap, and like when you're kind of trying to be as good as the thing that your taste made you get in the game because you want to be, like, maybe when you are at some sort of tipping point is when you're likely to be bitter that you're not going to make, that you haven't made it, but you could be, you know, a second away from the miracle happening or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if that's empirically true. I don't know. I think it would be hard to like truly assess that data wise, but I do feel it for myself because I can look back at sets from even like a year ago or a year and a half ago, and I was saying some of the same jokes, but they weren't quite fleshed out yet. And I was like I have a whole bit now about not deleting emails, and it's connected to the lawyer stuff because so much of what I talk about is emails. And it's basically like I have this one throwaway line that I love, which is, if you want me to see an email, find a way to put it in my sent mailbox, because that's the only one that I check reliably. Because it's like, you know, when I send an email, I get so proud of my work. I'm just like, I think I could take the afternoon off. I could just reread this one over and over again. Like, sent terrific 3 times in a single paragraph, signed a business email, love, but confidently. Like, I could be so proud of myself. And that, to me, I was so happy when I wrote it, and I would start saying it, but I would say it in these sets that were like 7 minutes in a showcase, and I thought I had the perfect tape, but I was saying that, I was saying this other joke, I was saying 17 other jokes, and I do have a rapid fire style, but I think because of that, sometimes saying fewer topics and, you know, sort of filling it out more is necessary for someone to really receive what I'm transmitting. And I don't think I was there yet, even though some of the jokes, I'm like, yeah, I stand by the joke. I now tell that joke as part of something that honestly could go on for 17 minutes about that topic that I was throwing away in maybe 45 seconds before. You know,
it sounds like you got like a little bit more presence now. Like,
I think maybe I'm trying.
Yeah.
I also think that there's just that old thing where it's like, you don't get everything. Like, you submit, I'm with you. You submit to all these you have to submit it and then forget it, right? Like, submit it and then don't think about it again. Like, don't get on the ride. There was a comic that I was friends with when I first started, and he would say to me, don't get on the ride. Don't get on it. Because as soon as you're on the ride, you're off and running and you can't focus on anything else because you're on this ride. So just submit it and forget about it. Like, and it's crazy to me that, I mean, I love the fact that you submitted and got declined and then came back and won the whole thing. I just think that's so awesome. And it might not have even been you. Like, I love that you're looking. I always look here first, right? Look here first.
Yeah. Well, like, that's a good point.
Yeah. And it also could have just been, they already had filled all the slots by the time your team came in. It was whatever. Like, and you know what? You're probably going to get declined again. I'm going to get declined. Kristina's going to get declined. Like, there are people all the time who are still, they might be at the top of their game and they're still not getting the things that they want.
That's very true. And
I want to make, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just going to say, I don't want to, I want to talk about all the things you're working on right now, though, because I think it's really, I want people to know where to find you.
Oh, right? Yeah, for sure.
So, producer Matt has put your information. It's running on the banner on the bottom. You won, obviously, the Boston Comedy Festival. You also have, I want to talk about, you're with Mike Kaplan. Mike is a friend of the show. We love Mike. It's Liz and Mike's Hour of Comedy Talking. Do I have the name right?
Sometimes we call it Weird Week Wednesdays because every week is a weird week and we talk together on Instagram Live. And we take questions. Yeah, it's really fun. I mean, Mike is the best. And
so great.
Yeah. It's been like such a mainstay and a saving element, at least for me in quarantine, to just have that regular place.
Yeah, for sure. And then you have a podcast called Finding 40.
Yes.
I love this.
Oh, thank you.
You only have guests who are over 40.
Yeah, so except for one, we had a 39-year-old guest who was
I'm gonna flip this
turning 40. Yeah, and so, but for perspective on like what it's like to be approaching 40, also, and yeah, but it was. I mean, at this point, it's been just the single season, and it was totally fun. But it was just the kind of thing where, you know, I was turning 40 and then I was able to do this, and so I did it.
I love that so much.
That's great.
Yeah.
Definitely folks should check you out on Instagram. You have tapes, really. I'm sure who's over 40 now. You have sets out there that people can watch online. And oh my gosh, I just wish you all the best.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm excited for you, and
thank you.
Yeah, like what an awesome way to roll into 2021.
Thankfully.
Right?
Yeah. It's nice. Well, this is just such a treat to be able to be here with both of you. This was super fun. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming on.
It was an honor.
Yes, for sure. And I hope to see you soon. All right.
Okay.
Bye, Liz.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Oh, delightful, right?
Yeah, unbelievable. I love the story too. Like it's it really, I don't know, it really hits home that if you want something, keep at it. Like just keep showing up. And I love your attitude too about like you got to do it and then walk away from it. Like I used to do that all the time with auditions when I was auditioning more commercially, where I'm like, you just do it and you walk away. Like when I would get cast every once in a while, they'd be like, do the thing that you did in the audition. That was really good. And I'm like, I have no idea.
I don't know how I got this.
Yeah. I spent 5 minutes in there and then I walked and I totally like let it go.
Yes.
And the ones that you walk out, then you're like, oh, I crushed that. Like totally. Then you get super dejected, or the ones that you feel terrible about, you come back and you're like, how did I get cast? So like, you know, I hear it. It's like, you got to do it and walk away and not beat yourself up about it.
Exactly. Live in that moment of time.
Yeah.
And then you've got to just let it go.
Yeah.
And
I love the idea that like, there's something more to learn. Like I didn't have it all right then. And that's okay. Right. That's awesome. Yeah.
Or maybe you just weren't tall enough.
Right.
Like, I always come back to this story, and then I know we're chock full of guests tonight. And I just think this goes with what we were talking about with Liz. I always come back to this thing where I went on an audition. This is years ago, like 15 years ago. I went on this audition and I thought I did great. I was like, I think I nailed that. I'm going to get it. And a couple days passed and I got a phone call from them, and they told me that I didn't get what I came in for, but they have something else for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is it? And they said, okay, you're going to go to New York City and you're going to dress as an Ewok, and you're going to, I swear to God. And I was like, do I have lines? They're like, no, Ewoks don't talk. So like, and they said, well, I said, what's the criteria for this? And they said, they're looking for people under a certain height. And I was right at the cutoff. So it sometimes you're just the right height.
Yeah.
Right?
I had a commercial audition, and they shared with me after the fact that I almost didn't get it because my hair was too similar to the guy that they had cast, because like curly, like it was almost the same color.
Yes.
And then like they're like, you would look too much alike. So I had to go in and they straightened my hair and did this whole thing so that I looked different. But like something I did sort of stood out, and they're like, you almost didn't get it because hair. And I'm like, okay. Like,
yeah. It's crazy. It's like that. Sometimes you just have to walk away from it and move on to the next thing, and always be trying to grow and get better and like figure out how to stay true to like what your main fundamentals of your craft are.
Well, I find that with job interviews too. Like it's the same thing where it's like, I mean, you can hammer at home and do your best, but you know, in the end, if it's a bad personality match, then you don't want it anyway. Like it's not gonna, you know, I mean, you do want it, but there's something else out there, you know? And
exactly.
I think that's easy to say from my standpoint. Like I know I've had a lot of older folks in my family and sort of like network that like once you get past a certain age, that doesn't quite seem to be the case anymore because there is a lot of age discrimination. But yeah, I mean, you just, that's a whole different topic. And
I love it though. What a great, like, Liz Glazer.
I can't wait to, yeah. And Ewoks are heroic. So
Ewoks are amazing. I also have been offered a Care Bear job before. So being just shy of 5 feet really has been lucrative for me. So Ewoks are the best. Okay. Yeah. Speaking of craft.
Yeah. And speaking of Ewoks. I don't know. It sort of comes in a similar way. Our next guest is has just completed and just put out an amazing new comic book, and I have mine, so I haven't even taken it out. This new comic book by the name of Nightmare Man, if you can see it. Yeah. Let's just bring him out, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Wilding.
Hi.
Hi,
Matt.
How are you?
I'm so well, Smarz. How are you?
I'm good. Do you prefer Matthew? I didn't realize.
No. So that's a trick I learned from one of my old coworkers, where I put my name as Matthew on everything I write, so that when I meet people or anything professional, so that when I meet people and they call me Matthew, I know that I haven't met them before.
Ooh, that's good.
I wish I had a better name.
Well, it's kind of sort of like me with Smarz, where it's like I know, but there are people that don't know that I have a first name, so that my name is Smarz. So that doesn't always work. But well, thank you for coming, Matt. I'm very excited to talk to you and to dig into Nightmare Man. So tell us a little bit about. I want to know where this came from, because you and I go way back in terms of. I know you are an excellent writer. We met in a sketch class in
we did
15 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, we like worked on a sketch about like a bloomin' onion or something.
That sounds like both of our wheelhouses, right?
Yeah, really high on stuff. Yeah, we met at a sketch class that Marty Johnson taught and at Improv Asylum, and you kept on writing things that were funny, and I never got the hang of it. So I wrote other stuff, and yeah, we've worked together at a couple of places. But yeah, so where did Nightmare Man come from?
Is this something? So you've been a comic book fan
for years. Yeah. So at the about a year and a half ago, I guess, I decided to kind of try to get into how comics were made. So I talked to a friend of mine who is from Boston named Mike Conrad, who is now writing Wonder Woman, but he wasn't at the time, and asked him kind of how the industry worked, and he essentially was like, write a short, and I wrote like a really long comic, and he was like, write something way shorter. Write like an 8-page comic and get it made, like pay an artist, find an artist, get it made. So I wrote Little Things, which is actually also in the back of Nightmare Man. And it's about an insane asylum closure in a small town in Massachusetts, which is very real to me because I grew up in Foxborough, Massachusetts, where there was an insane asylum that closed. There was a lot of men from the insane asylum who walked around the town, or allegedly from the insane asylum who walked around the town. One of them was called Lurch, and he was like this 7-foot tall man with a bag, and kids would heckle him, and they'd ask him what was in the bag, and he'd always say little things, and then he'd laugh. And so Little Things,
chills, like that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Are you okay, Matt?
And so
were you ever in the bag, Matt? Blink twice if yes. Are you in the bag now?
I mean,
so he lost it one night and one day and actually opened the bag and showed us what was in the bag. It was just papers. But I always thought he was an interesting kind of analog for how we treat people who are mentally ill, because what if something was in the bag that was what made him crazy? And so Little Things is about a person who has something that's so mind-bendingly difficult to deal with that he's actually dealing with it well, and when somebody else sees it, they deal with it a lot worse. Nightmare Man kind of came from that. In Foxborough, there was also this conservation land that I used to hang out in with friends on these paths off the side roads. And I remember really vividly this guy who looked just like Jim Martin from Faith No More, which Nightmare Man looks exactly like Jim Martin from Faith No More, getting out of a green Ford Taurus and just staring at me down the path. And then I remember seeing him like a dozen more times in my life. And I'm not sure if that's a real memory, but I remember it really well. And so one day I was walking my dog and I was just thinking about how that guy scared me. And what if I saw him now and he looked exactly the same? And how would I feel about that? And how would that come about? Why would he still look exactly the same?
Right.
And so that was the root of that story.
So what made you bring those types of stories? Because those, I feel like, and knowing you and your ability to speak so eloquently and to put words to paper and to really be rather prolific with your words. Why a graphic type scenario? What made Nightmare Man become a comic book as opposed to like a short story or a novel?
There's a lot of reasons. One of them is I like comics.
Okay,
I've always wanted to make comics. Actually, when I was in a like ropes course in 10th grade or something, where Awesome Dave from the Y, which was really what he called himself, it had us all talk about what we wanted to do when we grew up. I talked about wanting to make comics, and then I like got serious and adulty and like got a job and stuff, and
every time
forgot about it. And one of the things that Ms. Glazer said that was so spot on to me and hit me so right in the middle of my chest is that there's this idea that you can't do things anymore after you get your career, that you can be a lawyer. In my case, I work in museums, and you get in this trajectory where you're a professional, and then you can't really hunt for the things you want to do. And I think the pandemic was a really great opportunity for a lot of people to reflect on that and decide maybe this is actually a great time for me to do that thing I've always wanted to do. So I did. The other reason is I'm actually just not very good at prose writing.
Really?
Yeah, I think really visually a lot of the time. I'm pretty good at dialogue. And I can write prose, but I think I work better visually. I always wanted to make films. I just couldn't afford it. Comics are cheaper to produce than movies. And I was always really influenced by people like Neil Gaiman and his early comic book work. I read a ton of Tales from the Crypt when I was a kid, and still do. So it was just it just felt right. And I like horror stuff.
Yeah. So take us through, for any possible aspiring comic book writers who are watching tonight live on their television sets. I refuse to believe this is on the internet.
This whole show is just people being old, being like, Twitch.
Yeah. Matt, if you only knew.
Yeah,
if you
no idea.
knew. Yeah.
Developing a Twitch? Is that what we're talking about?
I thought you could only play video games on this platform until tonight.
Well,
not till tonight. I learned this a while ago, but yes, welcome.
So how does one, going from the words, like you worked with an amazing artist, Matt Rowe.
Matt Rowe is so good. He's so good.
Amazing. Like some of the pictures, I don't know if our producer Matt can this is covered here. He can show us a little bit. But so as a writer, how do you express to him what's actually going to be on the page? Like how much control do you have over the visuals and how much do you not? Does he read what you wrote and then kind of go, this is what I see it as? I know it's collaborative, but.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the relationship between the artist and the writer, and how controlling the writer wants to be. Some really, really famous writers, people like Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman, I think to a lesser extent Grant Morrison, they write really, really detailed, like down to the books on the shelf kind of descriptions of panels. They do page layouts. Some people do thumbnails. I didn't do that. I actually didn't say specifically where I wanted any panels or how large I wanted them to be. I just gave kind of outlines and explained the specific things I knew needed to be there, and then kind of let Matt run with it from there. And then we'd go back and forth. If there was something that I saw that I was like, well, that actually isn't conveying what's important here. We'd rework things. Also, at one point, there's a Minotaur in this issue, and Matt drew a centaur initially, and I had to explain to him the difference.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I gave him a lot of free reign on the process because I trust his instincts. One of the really huge advantages of working on little things with Matt first is that we got to kind of get the nuts and bolts out of our process. It's really hard to build up a 24-page issue with someone you don't know and don't trust. I've worked with other artists where things weren't as smooth.
Yeah. So there's more. Is there more Nightmare Man coming, or is there going to be is this going to be a sequential catalog of Nightmare Men?
No. Yeah, I didn't intend on writing any more of Nightmare Man because it just kind of came as the the concept of like, what if you ran into this guy in a coffee shop, and he was still him. The response has been really positive, and people have asked if there's going to be more. So I'm thinking about it, but it's not my next project. The next things I'm working on are Matt Rowe and I are working on a ghost, a kind of haunted house comic series.
Ooh.
It's probably going to go 4 or 5 issues. That's tentatively called Man of the House. It's about a man who is attached to a house, and then another ghost that is attached to a person.
Ooh.
So
You write scary, Matt.
yeah.
Like really scary.
I try.
Yeah.
It's the goal.
Foxborough, come on. Like,
I know,
place.
right? Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's funny. I don't really think of being from Foxborough very much. I've lived in the city a long time, and I literally came to Boston with a duffel bag and a milk crate on a train as soon as I was like legally allowed to move out of my house. But that place really shaped, I guess, what I'm scared of.
Okay.
And one of the really exciting things about Nightmare Man that was really depressing in a way is, when I met Kristina, I was trying to do comedy, which I never quite got the hang of.
And was both depressing and scary is what.
Yeah, but it's because I was in my head a lot. As a lot of comics are, Kristina, you said really thoughtfully earlier that, you give people notes and they're like, well, this is what I'm trying to do. And you're like, well, that's not what you're doing though.
Right.
With Nightmare Man and with Little Things, I got to kind of explore some of the things about myself that I don't really like.
That's awesome.
And some of the things that are like kind of embarrassing about my personality and the things that I'm scared of. And a lot of those were, as with most people, were shaped in the places I grew up and the people around me. Not to say that I had a bad upbringing. My parents are lovely and my hometown's great. But kids get scared.
That's one of the things that I think is really cool though about you, sort of stepping back to, like, as a friend and as a colleague / coworker, occasional collaborator, it's really neat to see how you've developed and changed over the years, and that growth, that growth that comes with just doing stuff and being there, and then like growing and listening to feedback, letting that adapt you, letting things change. But I feel like that's one of the coolest things about you. We're gonna get mushy for a second, but like Matt was my boss for a little while. He was kind enough to hire me for a job at the Edward M. Kennedy Institute. And Matt was, quite frankly, one of the best bosses I've ever had. And what I appreciated about him was that he was the type of boss that hires people or works with people saying, like, you know what to do. Like, I'm going to give you the parameters and then do your thing. Like, there wasn't a lot of micromanaging. And so you were more of a collaborator to some extent than a micromanager or a dictator, who kind of let people shine. You let people do the things that they did best, and then said, there you go. If there were problems, obviously they were addressed, and they were addressed very fairly. But that's something that you still seem to be doing with the comic books, because you've with Sequential Decay, you've got to call out for collaborators, right?
Yeah. Well, and just to respond to that a little bit, part of that, honestly, and this isn't me being self-deprecating, is I'm actually just really lazy. And so I tend to hire people who are talented because it just makes me look good and it makes me look smart. It's why I keep working with Matt Rowe, is because he keeps making my mediocre writing seem scary. It's why I've always worked with people like you and Rob Crean and so many of my other frequent collaborators. Is they do the work that makes me not look like an idiot, which is all I want, is for people to not think I'm an idiot.
Yeah. That's all we all want.
I feel it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, I like working with people who give a shit about what they're doing.
Yeah, we can't ask much more.
Yeah.
So Nightmare Man is still on sale, right?
Sure is.
I have been afraid to take mine out. I was actually saving it. But here's the thing. I'm not a comic book person. Not that I don't like them. As a matter of fact, I started to kind of get into them. A friend of mine was very into comic books, and I was reading some of his old like Batman comic books, and I was really digging the artwork, and like I was like, oh, I see where it wasn't what I'd expected. but I know when they're in the little plastic, this is when they're special, and I don't want to take it out. So I'm probably like, I've read some of the digital version, and that might end up being like, I love touchy things, but I might end up just reading the digital version because I want to keep, and it's like, it's even, it's got a signature on there. So like, so can people still buy this?
Yes. They can. The website is actually on the bottom, where you can buy it at gumroad.com/sequential decay.
Okay.
You can. There's also a link on my website, sequentialdecay.com. And just a quick aside about keeping it in the bag. So you're not the first person to say that to me, because a lot of people who were kind enough to support this project were people who I just kind of knew over the years. Which, speaking to what you just said about how I've worked with people who are just like talented. So I've worked with a lot of people who are very talented. And one of the things that I really like about a lot of the people I've worked with over the years is that they're just supportive of people trying shit. And so I've worked with a lot of people who were very supportive of me trying this thing, because I always wanted to do it and everyone knew I wanted to do it. I actually wrote a superhero Senate simulation game at the job that we worked at. So 100 kids got to play senators legislating superpowered people.
Oh, fun.
So I've always wanted to do this. So when I did it, got a lot of orders. So one of my other former colleagues called me and was like, I have this comic and I'm afraid that if I open it, I'm going to destroy it, and my boyfriend wants to read it, but I don't want him to touch it. So I just want to be clear with everybody. I am never going to be famous. It's never going to happen. And even if things go super well and like stuff gets adapted into movies in the future and whatever, there is no world where that comic book will ever be worth more than like $50 if things go great.
I disagree.
If I get a Netflix
some
series,
pretty famous shout outs already, have you not?
Yeah, I mean comics Twitter is just very nice, really. Gail Simone did support the project a bit, and I do want to call her out specifically because she's really part of the reason how it got made. Gail Simone, if folks don't know who she is, she used to run a blog years ago that I believe was called Women in Refrigerators. And it was about the bias that's often displayed in comic books about women and how she noticed frequently women were found dead in refrigerators. So she wrote this blog about it, got kind of a following, ended up a comic book writer, reinvented a title called Red Sonja, which is a Conan spinoff, and then is probably most famous for her work on Birds of Prey, which was adapted into a film last year. Cool. So Gail is kind of an internet personality, and she did this project really early in the pandemic called Comics School. And at the time I had just stopped drinking and was starting to write comics, but hadn't really gotten anywhere, had a lot of pent up energy, and just had that problem that you always have or I always have, where I felt like I didn't know how to do the thing I wanted to do. And Gail took the time to walk through it for a week with anyone who wanted to participate. And like 10,000 people participated. Wow. And it produced a few anthologies and a few comics. To my knowledge, Nightmare Man is the first physical comic that has been released from that program. But Gail was really nice and patient with all of us and was nice enough to, frankly, just tweet out about it. And she's got like thousands and thousands of followers who interact with her all the time. And so that just got me a lot more attention and attraction than maybe I deserved.
That's awesome. Nope. We're gonna leave it at that. It got you attention, and we want you to have continued success, Matt. So yeah.
I have no doubt in my mind you're gonna be famous, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Kelly.
Yeah, for real. Like you are kind, and you have passion when you're talking about your work, and I think that will propel you exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. So I'd like everyone to remember to check it out at Sequential Decay, and there is a new link up there as well for the antiquity
Objects of Antiquity. So Objects of Antiquity came out yesterday. 4-page free comic at sequentialdecay.com.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye.
Oh my gosh, that is so much fun and an amazing feat. I wouldn't even know where to start.
That was his pandemic project. Like he started.
I know.
I'm like, I can't get my closet cleaned out. And he writes,
I know.
And like, yeah.
All right. Well, we told you this was a full show, and we were not kidding. We have more guests.
Transition here. Like we were looking at having Nightmare Man on the show.
I know.
Well, that's not the Nightmare Man, but the comic. And then we started talking about dreams, and we figured that we would bring some of our well, Kelly and I believe in psychics, and so we've both been seeing people that help interpret dreams. So I don't want to give too much more away. We've got our friends Merle Bastion and Fiona Clavigal on here
Okay, turn my music off. Hi.
Hello.
So good to see you guys.
So good to see you. Thank you for having us on.
Thank you for being here to help us interpret some of these dreams that we've been having. A lot of our folks at home know that personally about us that we have weird dreams. So Smarz, you had a doozy. Do you want to share it?
I don't know which one you're talking about. I had the sexual one. No.
Well, no. I mean, I have one that I could talk about that I had last night.
Okay.
Does that?
Go for that one, and then I'll see if I can remember which one you're talking about.
Okay. So I had a dream last night that I was in a parking lot tailgating for a concert, and there was no concert venue. And a lot of people were there, and they were grilling and doing your normal tailgate stuff, drinking, and a car pulled in and shot everyone in the parking lot, but no one was perished. And I had to save everyone. Like, for some reason, no one could get themselves together. So I'm wondering, what does this mean? What is this?
Oh, wow. Merle, we've heard this before. I feel like we've heard this before.
Any dream that involves where people are not perished is very significant. And I'm not surprised it's a dream that you remember. Fiona, you've dealt with this quite a bit before, actually, in your spirit dance work. Perhaps you should. Why don't you start off? Because I don't want to put too much of my patriarchy into this interpretation.
Well, when I really get into it, and I'm thinking, oh, here I am, and I'm Kelly MacFarland. I'm at a concert. Is it the Indigo Girls? I don't know where I am. I think what this means is that you need a stake. Now, do I tell everybody they need red meat based on their dreams? No. You got a lot of responsibility, and Merle.
Yep. And the responsibilities is something that you're running away from. And I think your biggest responsibility right now is to yourself. And what you need to know is take a look at the people in your life and ask yourself, is this person going to stick me into a refrigerator? And I'm not going to live. Okay. So the people who were perished in your dream or were not perished in your dream, they didn't die because a gun is not going to kill you. It's a person, a loved one is going to kill you.
A loved one. Merle hit
with a refrigerator. With a refrigerator.
One of our viewers commented that maybe she was watching too much news. Is that a possibility?
No.
That is a misconception.
That's not. Let's understand. Let's understand. There's a difference between what we call the real world, which is not the real world, and the dream world, which is neither the real world nor the dream world. We all believe that the news is going to affect us in our dreams. It does not.
No.
I would suggest watching the news.
You watch the news. People say, don't watch the news. Merle and I say, watch the news. It's a guilty pleasure for all of us. Nothing bad can come of it. Nothing bad. And have a steak. Kelly, have a steak.
Okay. So my iron's low. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll be racy. I don't know if this is the one that you meant though, but because I had told Kelly about. So I did have a dream about a male friend of mine, who there's nothing romantic with. There never has been. As a matter of fact, he doesn't even like women, to my knowledge. So but we went on a vacation with his family, and it was a big family. There was a lot of us, but we were all sharing a hotel room. And we were, for some reason, it was time to go to bed. And so we all kind of climbed into bed. And so we were all in this giant bed together. He was he was sort of spooning me, but his mom and dad were literally right after him. And he started to get a little amorous. And I was surprised.
Yeah.
Your parents are right there. You know what? And pretty soon after that, I woke up, but I was very confused about that dream because, like I said, there's no there's nothing between the two of us, nor has there really ever been.
Yeah. So this is first of all, I want to say the relationships between people. This is common. Fiona and I have been practicing this for 27 years, and she knows as much as I do that I don't like women either. And yet they appear in my dreams all the time.
Okay.
Yep.
All the
and
time.
I don't like parents. And I say, Merle, why are all these parents appearing in my dreams in a sexual way?
Yeah.
And Merle says to me, well, it's been 27 years, Fiona. We both know
that you and your life are joined together with all of your ancestors. And so when you go to sleep, you are sleeping with every single person who has ever birthed you. Dreams are not just about you. They are a way of reclaiming your history, your family history. And in fact, I would suggest that if you dream deep enough, you can go back to the very earliest parent you ever had, which would be probably a great ape, or maybe even a small mammal that appeared just after the dinosaurs went extinct.
Mine was well, Merle, we figured this out. It was in the platypus family, and Merle's
very odd
parent, you would never believe it. Beaver.
Lemur.
Sorry, I knew it sounded like they don't rhyme.
Oh, wow.
This is why I don't like women.
And I make it very easy for him, don't I, Merle?
She does, but it's...
We have been working with you two for, will you come back on the show and help us keep sorting through all of this? Because we only we have just a moment left. And Fiona, you gave me some great dancing exercises. And I was wondering if you could show everyone that move that you showed me to get, there it is. It's a rolling. And we'll just let that take us out.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Oh my gosh. Next time on Genuine Nonsense, we have Lamont Price joining us next week. Everybody roll it out. Let's take it out.
Very much.
Oh.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Merle.
Oh,
thank you.
Merle, why won't you love me?
Thank you, Liz.
You get married when the pandemic is over?
Stick around. There's more on 2MB Studios. Coming up next, The Boy Detectives.